You looking at me? You looking at me? Man, I still started muted. Fuck. Like, I'm at like the pinnacle of my evolution. And I still cannot master this mute button. I can't do it. Pinnacle of my devolution, maybe. It's better than revolution, by the way. Time and has avoided revolution by participating in revolution. And we do this every day. We do this when we go to bed at night. You have a fear that something your foot underneath the bed. You're concerned about it. You're a grown-ass man. Have you asked yourself why? Why are you worried about sticking your foot off the edge of the bed? And if you think it's because you're flawed, you're wrong. You could be flawed. Actually, that's ironic as fuck. If you think it's because you're flawed, you're wrong. I'm telling you that if you think you're flawed, which is pretty funny. It's kind of like the mute button, right? All over again. Why do you guys even listen to me? Fuck, if I can't even handle like a mute button, basic wardrobe, simple things like that. No sound? Fuck. Okay. It's not muted. I've been told there's no sound. I don't know. On. All right. I'm going to shut the show down because I don't. I'm going to have to type this because you can't hear me. All right, guys. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. All my sound is actually on. Sorry, looking at the chat. No one can hear me, right? All right, we'll do the show tomorrow. Oh, is it just Rockfin, Tim Bob? Fuck. Guys, I'm not getting any answers, so I'm gonna shut it off. Melanie, you're telling me sound, but then no sound, but then sound, but then no sound. I mean, I get it. That's probably what you're experiencing. Okay, so some of you guys are having bandwidth issues. Is that right? You can watch the stream saying sarcastic, sending you to Rockfin. That's probably works. You should be able to jump to Rockfin if it's working on. I actually don't know if it's working on Rockfin. I'm completely in the dark here. Crap, I hate starting the show this way. I mean, it's one thing when I mess it up, but coming through good now, says Free Press 666, and he's on YouTube. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Do we have sound? Sorry. What a terrible way to start a show. My fault. Rockfin is also choppy. Man. That sucks. I'm actually hardwired in, so it's not my Wi-Fi. My foot is off the bed right now, so someone can hear me. All right. So for those of you who can hear me, I'm going to give you a show. And for those of you that can't, man, I'm sorry. I don't know what else to tell you. Welcome to Monday. What a shitty way to start. Actually, I was muted at the beginning, so then I told you guys, wow, I'm muted, and then it turns out that the internet was buffering too, because I definitely was muted, and now we're 5 minutes in, and I haven't actually said anything. But hey, here we are. You might be a grown-ass man, might be sticking your foot under the covers at night, because you don't want it hanging over the bed, and you don't want it hanging over the side of the bed because you don't want anyone to get you. You do not want the boogeyman to get you. And you might is because you're faulty would make you faulty by thinking that you're faulty. Now you're caught up with everything I said earlier. I distracted it out a little bit. You're not faulty. You are producing an irrational fear to band-aid your rational fears because your body wants you to shut the fuck up and go to sleep. That your consciousness, I don't have a way to turn down a quality. Jimmy, I appreciate this suggestion though, but there's, maybe other people. Yeah, whatever Jimmy's saying is telling you to lower your quality, that might work. You create an irrational fear, like online and not having sound. You will create a mute. You will mute yourself because you are trying to cover up your rational fears. And this is what we've done since the dawn of time. And when you catch yourself at night pulling your feet in, even though you maybe even have a platform bed. I have a fucking platform bed. There's physically no way for anyone to be underneath my bed. And that I still might do that because irrationally, I find comfort. I can burn less calories in my irrational fears than I can in my rational fears. That if I'm concerned about a vax at work, if I'm concerned about my marriage, if I'm concerned about my kids, if I'm concerned about suddenly realizing that voting is actually a coping mechanism, that I'm going to be up all night. I'm not going to get a lot of sleep. And that my body will trick me, will lie to me. It will say to you, hey man, it's a big ass orc. Wokalar underneath your bed right now. And he can penetrate platforms. And not only is he under there, he's going to grab your foot. He only wants your foot. He's not going to get you when you're out of bed. He's only going to get you if your foot is sticking off. And only under those circumstances will he come up and grab you. Now you have shut off every single thing in your psychic garage, and you have tunneled in on this one irrational fear. And if you understand the mechanics of this, you realize it's not even irrational. That this is actually practical. That this is practical, congruent, efficient, and downright fucking clever. Because now your tunnel vision has shut off all these legitimate fears. Maybe some of them aren't even legitimate, by the way, but all these other fears that are stronger in favor of something that's irrational. That irrational nature of that fear gives you comfort. Thank you, Joyce. I was just looking down. Am I loud and clear? That gives you comfort to see that, just like I'm seeing Joyce right now. And thank you, Melanie, of course. Just the chat was right there. So these mechanisms that we have aren't even coping mechanisms. They're alchemy. There's something inside of yourself that's purposely scaring you, that's purposely utilizing a Merry Prankster-esque type scenario because it knows it will help you get some sleep. That Scotty is inside your head and it knows you've got a big day tomorrow and it needs you to shut the fuck up. It's like, Captain, there will be 6-breasted horse tomorrow. You need to go to bed right now. And that Scotty will tell the captain whatever is necessary because lying is something that the subconscious deems important. It sees the importance and the safety of this situation and will instigate that to its passengers. And the airline pilot will do the same thing. This is your captain speaking. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. We're just turning around, that's all. And if you see some fuel spitting out of the wings, first of all, realize that there's probably actually no fuel running this plane. And second of all, that fuel is completely natural, that it's a part of the gargling process that the plane goes through in order to have better breath. That in LaGuardia, you don't like planes to have bad breath, and so before we land there, even though we were scheduled for Dallas, that we're landing in LaGuardia, because the shortest distance between 2 points in a real map, and B, because we really have no choice, that lie is there to subdue, to redirect your focus for a constructive purpose that would even be called utilitarian, producing the most moral good. Some of you guys are Platonists or even Socratic, God bless your poor souls, and you think that the moral good is actually the thing that we all need, that if everyone was pursuing this higher moral good outside of ourselves, that we would all be better off. And that's literally why we have 78 vaccines. It's why. That evacuation works both ways. That your bed will cause the Scotty inside you will cause you to evacuate from your rational fears because it knows you will go to sleep, and that the exact opposite works too, that you will climb into irrational fears in order to justify your own behavior, and that this system is running 24/7 all the time. And it doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're clever. That's all. This is one of the few places where you will come and you will find out that actually man is clever, that man is not stupid, that man is so clever that he's created the irrational fear of how stupid he is because it gives him this golden pass that gets him out of everything. That wearing the dunce cap is actually a liberation for you because no one is going to expect you to do your homework. Noses in the corner. That was suddenly developed as a tactic, and that tactic makes sense because you finally decided, even epigenetically, like your grandparents a long time ago, that this system isn't even valid. So why do I keep bringing my morality to the table, expecting it to spit it back? And people learn this lesson the hard way in courts, in really poor relationships, in business ventures. You learn that the field of morality is the largest handicap that's causing you to suffer. And that over time, some of us decide, I'm going to abandon this moral code and I'm going to start lying just like the system is. And that Scotty inside your head does the exact same thing. That he lies to you to shut you up because he knows you need sleep. This is not even like I said, this is not a flaw. And that there is no commandment telling you thou shalt not lie to yourself. It's not there. It's not. And that would have been the first one. And there's at least two of them that you could argue are purely about, hey, don't be sending your worship to nothing else. Like CNN. Or Rome. That was more important than the idea itself of lying. Thanks, Melanie. So, understand that this is a constructive, good part of you. Understand that this is not a satanic flaw that you found in yourself, and you need to now go, you know what, if you want to see that, go for it. And go unleash that technology on yourself and find a way to baptize you. But I'm telling you that we create lies to baptize ourselves all the time. That we use these clever tactics every single day. And that those clever tactics have been here for so long, and that we're living in a society that purposely puts out the idea that men are stupid, which makes it that much easier for you to play these games with yourself. This is a mutually beneficial, co-warped reality way of looking at things. And it absolves you of all satanic see, I'm even having trouble even applying this in a smart-ass way, but it would absolve you of any kind of evil that you might find inside yourself by playing this game. A, man is stupid, and B, that no one ever lies. No one. And that by default, all these things are lies. And you end up with someone as intelligent as, say, Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, who's telling people out that Watergate was real. Watergate was alive. Watergate happened. And it took someone like me even as late as 5 years ago, to finally look at Watergate and go, did you guys realize that Watergate was caught? The thing that made that link up to the parties, to Republican versus Democrat, the thing that made that look like Supreme Justice was being found was purely based on one simple idea. That the political party that was behind the spying took a campaign check that was written to someone else, and they flipped over the back and they signed it over to the criminal, and that's how they paid him, that they took a campaign check from the most regulated industry in the world, you would say, elections, which actually they probably are. I'm talking about finance. I'm not saying it's legit. I'm saying it's regulated. These are very different words. Total tangent, but you get what I mean, those of you who get it. That the most regulated industry in the world had someone, the most powerful person in the world, the most powerful political parties in the world, and they decide that the way they're going to pay the perpetrator is to take a check from their campaign and literally endorse the back of it, naming every single party who was guilty of every single act. And I'd like for you to picture that in a meme. Here's a fantasy meme, meaning you're lazy memes. Here's a new segment, lazy memes with James Drew. On one side, you have that campaign check endorsed, and on the other side, you have a passport. A clean, crisp, laminated passport buried in the rubble of a gigantic dual skyscraper that's fallen into a giant heap. Those two things are the same, that those two things are irrational fears that we use to pull our foot inside and stick them under the covers. And that the reason it happened is because Watergate set right everyone's suspicions since JFK that we're not living under the system that we think we are. That this system is so completely illegitimate that there's no way this is valid. That the only way to fix that would be to have a psyop like Watergate. Because the moment you introduce that psyop, the moment you get to think, oh, I'm safe now. I pulled my foot in from the edge of the bed. That the media caught these evil people. Thank God for the media catching them. And that our own government smelled the evil inside of itself and cleansed itself before any of us could even wake up in the morning. My God, we must be living in a righteous country. And that fear wasn't sold to you because it's clever, wasn't sold to you because you're stupid, that it was sold to you because it saved you calories, made you feel better. Now, if you can admit this, if you can truly admit this about yourself, that you will pull your foot in from the edge of the bed. Some of you don't do that, but you do other things. The reason why you don't do that is because that irrational fear doesn't actually fix it. That you have irrational fear that's just a little bit more complex than that irrational fear, and that if you look deep enough, you would find yourself doing the exact same thing. A woman will, I don't mean to be, I don't fucking care. Write whatever you want about me. A woman will adjust her doilies because she's worried about her husband on the range. These two things have nothing to do with each other. But the irrational fear that my doilies are not straight is a alchemical transaction that you make with the mind. And because your mind is pliable to believe, you're safe, which means that your mind has a bona fide reason to buy into these things. That there is a strict profit that's paid the moment you do that. That the moment you pull your foot in from the bed, you feel safe even though the world never changed. But you eliminated the threat that you thought was there. And when you eliminate a threat, whether real or fake, you feel better. Now, you might be wondering why I'm telling you all these things. And the reason why I'm saying this now is because we just had a mass event occur this weekend. People were stampeded. It was at a concert. I think there was a Kardashian involved. I'm pretty sure. I might have something confused. It was someone with a big ass. Maybe she didn't have a big ass. But there was some kind of event. And like all Twitter, every day, as soon as you see that event, you're seeing a million toes being pulled into the covers and a baptism happening. And I'm not here to tell you this is wrong. No. I'm here to hopefully educate you on how the psyche works and how clever it is and how smart it is. Because what I saw unraveling was the most detailed decode you've ever seen, except for last week and then the week before. This constant decode of how satanic this ritual was. And that's what gets all the hits. That's what invents QAnon. That's what invents amazing power. All these systems run off this baptism machine. It's a vending machine. It's a hot dog vendor on the side of the street that sells absolution. Absolution through the slaughter of a pig. It's exactly the same as the tabernacle in the wilderness. Exact same thing. If you really want to understand what the tabernacle in the wilderness is, it was a giant mobile barbecue that offered absolution. If you come into this tent, you will get barbecue and you will feel better about not being evil. That's the offering at that food court. And the same system is still in place today. And we've seen the same system through the witch trials, through the Inquisition, through most government programs. The same idea of how can I absolve myself? I don't need it to be rational. I need it to be real. And when you long, epigenetically, it becomes a standard fare, and we have that now. We pretend that to talk shit about oneself is to actually be like kind or humble. But if you've ever caught someone talking shit about themselves like I've done, and you push it more, you notice right away it's all facade. When someone says to you, well, I'm just a fucking idiot, look at them and go, yeah, you are a fucking idiot. And just wait. Now, you're probably going to lose that friend for a little bit, but you are making something expensive for them. You are making the art of hyena, the art of religious baptism, this fanatical baptism in front of you, expensive. That's what you're doing. And you say, yeah, you are a fucking idiot. And they look at you all cross like, what are you doing? You're like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were denigrating yourself to feel better. So as an eyewitness, I was just helping you. You're a fucking idiot. And if they're like, well, fuck you, then ask them, why is it okay for you to call yourself that? But then if I agree with you, it's wrong. And you see the entire menagerie shatters before your eyes. The entire thing. It just collapses. And you're just like, what? What just happened? I just explained my childhood. I just explained my entire adolescent life, walking around, seeing what people are after, and then giving them that, and then asking why it was they didn't want that anymore. It took me forever to realize, holy shit, this is something called, I had to make up a word for it. Prawn economy. I had to fucking make up a word for it. Like, there's not even a fucking word in the language that explains these irrational transactions that we make with each other in order to survive. We can't even discuss it because the amount of light that would come in through that closet would burn the fucking retinas of all these people hiding inside. The irrational fears breed more irrational fears, which breed more irrational fears. And you end up with a fentanyl crisis that's completely based on demonology. And every single person who calls this incident a satanic incident, which might be you, and hey, I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm telling you you're clever. That by you insisting that that was a satanic ritual and that all those people were killed on purpose and that the Illuminati was behind him, the Freemasons were selling cokes at the back door, that all that was set up, that is the exact same thing as pulling your toes in off. That the moment you can paint a satanic, evil, Luciferian, Freemasonic figure out there in the world, purposely eating children, is the same moment that you were baptized of all the wrong that you've done that day. That these rituals are important because we are dealing with a psychosis of baptism that builds off this technology of salvation that we've covered in previous live streams. I hope you'll take my work seriously and consider those things. That the technology of these baptisms has been completely, crucially necessary for our survival. I'll remind you very briefly about mourning laws. That you can't mourn too long. I remind you briefly about one of the biggest problems with the Black Plague wasn't necessarily the contagion or the isolation. It was the sheer emotional outbursts that were destroying the town, that the immune system of the culture itself could not handle the fanatical shedding of rage, of horror, of sadness as all this was happening. And part of that was because we did not have a rational, even an irrational way of debasing what was happening around us with the pox. That because we couldn't see it, it became a bonfire of the vanity of Satanism within inside of us. It was never about the actual witch. It was about which of us could see or peel that evil out of the ether more than anyone else could. Which is why I'm so harsh about the witch trials, because it shows you that all of us inherited our epigenetic psychosis from these people, and that they were exorcising demons out of thin air the whole time. That when you take an herbalist who has too many cats and you throw her into a fire, that the amount of psychic guilt that is emitted from that crowd creates an egregorious demon, a psychic living leviathan that will only die by witness. But no one is able to witness what they've just done to that poor lady. Therefore, that demon itself has been exorcised from the very pool of people insisting that she was satanic. And when we see these satanic rituals, what we're really doing is absolving society. We're telling society it's not your fault. We're saying that the crowd that tramples itself in the middle of a concert when everyone's already hyped up over all the bullshit that's been going on or in the world, that if they were to suddenly trample themselves, it would never, ever, ever be the fault of the people. It would have to be a satanic figure pulling the strings that no one can see. And the moment someone like me walks around and says, I don't think it was them, I think it was us, is the moment that we start to turn on each other. And that the Great Awakening is the turning on each other. That stumbling out of this block, anyone who tries to say, I would like for you to connect to your fatherland, is instantly cast as the next witch. And that this technology is important. We would not be able to at night sleeping if we did not have these stories to tell ourselves about what's living underneath our bed. You could call it obfuscation. You could call it sort of like not sublimation, almost the opposite of sublimation. It's like supermation. There you go. Man, I invent words all the time. Supermation. That you were supermate that and give all that responsibility to anyone who wishes to be higher than you. And who would be higher than you? A witch finder, clergy, a magistrate, a king. And that as technologies developed over time, it became harder and harder because you're running out of old ladies with cats and you start to point those witches across the Rubicon. And you say it's the fucking Gauls. And they have a lot of gall over there, right? And now you're crossing the Rubicon and you're saying those are the evil ones. And as you slaughter them all, you feel better about yourself. You feel safer because you absolve that. Which means that most of evil is done by us, and it's used to ramp up that we actually have to put more evil on that fire, more shitty evacuated behavior. I'll clarify this with my language, that one would have to evacuate themselves in order to create the demon plasma from their soul. You have to evacuate. Psyche could lay claim to that responsibility, right? Which means you have to push it over the top. You have to give that bubble that you're creating enough torque that it leaves you far enough to where it can become its own entity and never back at you. And you see that now in the drama of these accusations. That each accusation has to be over the top. Because if not, it might linger right in front of your yard, and when you get up in the morning, you'd have to realize, oh fuck, I was the one who rolled my own yard with the toilet paper. It is that if you were to take that toilet paper and move several miles away and roll that person's yard, that you would not have to wake up in the morning and ever see that. In fact, you would have a fantasy about it because you wouldn't be able to see it. Which means it would be an even grander toilet papering scheme than you've ever considered before. These things you do are always profitable. And because they're profitable to your survival, it becomes very tricky to call them immoral, which is probably why there's not a sin in the Bible saying don't lie to yourself. Because your survival will depend exclusively on you lying to yourself. And the people that you see lying to you, even though they seem like they're doing really great, are actually just showing you where they really are, where they're at in their life. These demons that we create can be as dramatic as the tale of witches, or they can be as superficial as telling you, I haven't masturbated in 18 months. That guy creates the same demon that night after he announces on Twitter, well, I don't masturbate anymore. I haven't had sex anymore, blah, 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 blah. That when the person goes home and rubs one out, because our bodies are a rubber band, and the fact that we can find a way to pool stress together into a point and to release that stress, that is a functional of our body, much like farting, and that just like farting, we'll pretend that we don't do this either, that creates the exact same kind of egregore, the exact kind of exorcism, because I've never, ever heard a man admit, I haven't masturbated in a year, and the next day and say, I fucking knocked one out right after I posted that. And that because they're not able to own that kind of thing, they end up losing that plasma of themselves, evacuating from themselves, and that plasma that they gave life to is now a living egregore. It's alive in the system. And it's going to be in the food court of all our minds, and it's going to find someone to feed on. And some of us are so starving for attention that we will even take castigation off the street because of how much we value human witness. As we said Friday, I think it was Friday, the first crime wasn't death, it was banishment. That banishment is its own cruelty, because to be denied witness is to be denied light, a kind of light, a light that we devalue every day. I've been guilty of talking a lot of shit about Freud, written a lot of books explaining, not a lot, but I've written a few chapters, I should say, in my books that have explained what a dickhole he was. And I'm not trying to tell you guys that he's not a dickhole, but I'm telling you that my compassion has been stretched so far that I've missed truly some of the contributions that he made to psyche that many of us don't want to give him. And I have no problem with it. I'm not asking you, please go give Freud credit. I'm not asking you to like Freud. I'm telling you that before Freud, no one had a concept of suppressed psychic will. When I had a concept, I mean, no one could scientifically show it as a technology. And he did that. And maybe it was his wife even. I don't really care, because I want to get lost in the identity of Freud. This is not a show about the person Freud. I don't feel qualified to talk about that. But I can tell you that when Freud, when the works of Freud, there you go, how about that? When the works of Freud started to explain that suppressed will leak from your system through what we Freudian slip, through subconscious means, that before Freud said that, all of that was kept in the realm of internal sin. And that even Freud still had that idea, but you're looking at a man that was coming from the vista of that place. And that we stand on the shoulders of giants, even though they might look retarded now. It's hard for us to fathom how much strength it took, even at that time, to make those steps that they made. And Freud discovered, really did discover, that these suppressed wills can be redirected through speech. By talking to someone and by giving witness or light to suppressed will that expresses itself in these Freudian slips, one is able to give witness to these agencies that are stuck inside you, needing to be expressed. These agencies are competing every day for validity in your mind. And that the monarch of who you are, the crystal ship, the captain in your crystal ship, will pick which agencies neurologically have made it to the king's chamber to express themselves before him and say, "Oh Lord, may I please scratch my butt, for it itches muchly right now," and that king will either grant that peasant that request or will deny that request for other reasons. And that this monarchy that exists inside of ourselves is the best we can do to perform socially with each other. And that you could actually explain away that the ego itself, if you want to call it the id or the super id, I don't give a shit. But one of my biggest beef with Freud is that he splintered the mind by telling you it was three different things. I'd rather you see this as, no, it's one central thing. However, you're competing with all these neurological agencies that have formed throughout your body. That all the nerves around your heart, the neurons, literally the neurons that surround your heart, that your heart has its own brain, that your intestines has its own brain, those neurons legitimately qualify as a brain. That those agencies are competing for the king's favor. And the king will righteously deny or award witness to those agencies on a whim. And that even your agencies after a while would learn, as any kingmaker would, that the court of this kingdom has strings that can be pulled. And you're seeing that right now, that the irrational bishop, that the bishop will tell his king, "Lord, please move your feet from the edge of the bed, for a terrible darkness awaits that could grab your foot and forever enslave you." That wins, not because it's right. Do you see, this is what's so important. The king doesn't choose the bishop because the bishop was right. The king chooses the bishop because over the long haul, the bishop saves the king calories. So you're starting to look at a much more animal morality that's truly running the system, and that we have created this intellectual morality for the sole purpose of greasing our eyes over and failing to see this. That these satanic rituals that we claim they do to us are baptisms that we give ourselves. that by looking at something and saying, hey, Jack, look at how evil that fucker is over there. What you're really doing is you're washing your hands. And Jack witnessing you point to that evil is handing you soap. He's helping you feel clean. That you feel clean by demonizing, by castigating that plasma into something else. And I don't want you to change this. I don't. I'm not asking you to change this. I'm not even suggesting that this in and of itself is evil. Why? Because this has true utility. This will actually make you produce more morality. It's true. That if you were to pull your feet inside the covers, that the next morning when you wake up, if you had a full night's sleep, you will be nicer to your children. You'll be nicer to the community. You yourself will be a better person as a result. That the technology of that belief had nothing at all to do with its validity and everything to do with its utility. Now that's American philosophy. It's called pragmatism sometimes, or utilitarianism. A guy by William James kind of gets credit for kind of calling it that. But look at Thoreau, look at Whitman, look at Emerson. These people knew deep down how the world really worked. And this way that it really works is the same in nature. That nature works the exact same way. That there is a kindness, that's the wrong word, there's a tolerance that we secrete to our irrational nature, because when it comes down to us, all of us are truly blind in this world. What's really happening is we're painting our retinas with the pictures of things that seem to be the most palatable. That's what makes us okay. None of us want to know how the sausage is made. We just want to eat in the morning. If you can admit this about yourself, you're free. You're free because you're no longer going to be exercising demons out of yourself while you insist that you have all the answers, or that you're the one with the right and everyone else is wrong, or that you're the only one that sees the truly evil parts of this. I've been guilty of this too. I'm still not free totally, but I know that when I come to that place where I can compassionately see how anyone out there would make a decision from a moral seat in their mind, I now understand the world better. And that I can see that person and know that I've done those very same things, perhaps not at the same amplification that I see it now. But why does amplification now suddenly become the arbiter of what's moral? Now we enter into the realm of, well, it's a white lie. It's a little lie. It's just a little lie, James. That's all. That even that concept is showing you the same thing. And that the Crusades were doing the same thing, saying, I stab thee for the peace of God. That all the exorcisms we do are here to regulate the self. And that's not selfish, because if these people were better at regulating themselves, they would have no choice but to be more compassionate by example. It's like anybody in the world, like any gas tank. The more gas in your tank, the farther you're going to be able to go. The more willing you may be to give someone else a ride who you'll never see again. Your generosity is extended from your abundance, not from this secret seed that only you have but no one else has. But we utilize these competitions, we utilize these frameworks not to beat the system, not to fool the system. We utilize them simply to survive. And that civilization would do better to keep you in a constant survival mode, because the sooner you become generous, the less others will need government to fill the gap. Your generosity, your righteousness itself would start to form its own orbit, and that the villagers around you would suddenly realize, I kind of like this idea that we don't need to pay anyone taxes, that this is our land, and just like any animal, we live here. This eagle, that's his land, he doesn't pay taxes. This squirrel doesn't pay taxes, so why am I? And that generosity of thought will only come when you are in a position to be generous. And so everyone pointing at the satanic nature of something else, I would like for you to pranic economy look into them with compassion and see that what they're really cleansing is themselves. That this has nothing to do with that satanic thing. In fact, most of the time when you ask these people questions, they don't even know. You ask them deep, no one knows. So how did the Illuminati start the stampede? Well, because they played the music, and the music had this subconscious thing that like triggered this epigenetic egregore that's living inside your blood because of the taintedness of your inner evil. You end up with stories like that, and you're just like, huh, wow. And you realize, listening to that at no point in time is anyone now responsible for their actions. In fact, the only person responsible for these actions is this invisible figure that no one is ever going to catch. That you're never going to find the guy that's out there going, hey, I want you to stampede that guy. I want you to stampede that guy. So that's because it's Satan, James. Yeah, it's a perfect excuse, isn't it? Perfect. I could run this whole fucking world with a curtain. You could too. Why? Because that's what people want. I would tell people that behind that curtain is the evilest of evil. And if you open that curtain, you will become that evil too. And if anyone dared to open that curtain, you know what would be behind there? Another curtain. So even if you made it through that folly where you're like, oh, I'm going to go back there and see what the evil is, you would see another curtain. And the second you came out of that curtain, everyone would know that, wait a minute, that dude came from beyond the curtain. Evil, so he's evil. So no matter even that person tried to tell you the truth of what's behind that curtain, there's no fucking way anyone would ever try and pass that curtain to even verify it because of how everyone else is saying anyone who's behind that curtain is evil. Therefore, you trying to help me is you trying to hurt me. We see this now. We see this now with crypto. Yeah, with cryptocurrency. We're watching this right the fuck now with cryptocurrency. That as this entire world burns, the exorcists out there looking into that and saying, you're the source of evil here. And they're clinging to petrodollars the entire time and washing their hands with all that blood. That the blood from all that money they're using to wash themselves clean because they're not falling into the evil of blockchain. We tell ourselves these things because we need to sleep at night. And we've entered into this economy where we can only afford to try and find sleep. That the higher needs past Laszlo of food, clothing, shelter, pipe dreams. And you know, the real truth of this matter is that when you start to realize how much heat it takes to even raise beyond food, clothing, shelter, you realize the pressure of your peers around you that tell you that you're being evil by succeeding. The other day in the comments, someone said, well, James, I think most people agree money's evil. And no, money's not evil. And most people don't think that money itself is trust. That the only thing that's running civilization more than anything else is the fact that all of us can trade paper around and decide, well, we can all trust that this equals a certain amount of gold. And guess what? It doesn't even equal the gold. Which, if anything, shows you that society has too much trust. That money is showing us that. It's not evil. Money's showing us that. And money's making it a lot easier for a fucking bricklayer to get some eggs. Do you realize how hard it would be for a bricklayer to feed his family? Frickin' morning he has to haul bricks. Meanwhile, the guy that sells down feather pillows, he's just fucking loving life. Easiest job in the world. Can carry more pillows than anybody. That money itself is the true society. But we've taught ourselves that if you were to better yourself, think about it. We've taught ourselves that if you were to better yourself in this shitty situation, it would make you evil. And I want you to think about, go back to what we just talked about and ask yourself, why would it be profitable for me to suddenly be afraid of something that's under my bed and I will pull my foot in? You know, that's because you get sleep. So why would it be profitable to insist that I remain poor, that I will somehow be able to battle this system better? I was fucking poor and I clung to my petrodollars and said, oh, at least I'm not evil, I'm spending petrodollars. That you end up with that kind of irrational loco behavior because you see how expensive it is to advance. That all of us understand that beyond food, clothing, shelter is not the easy life. No, sir. That beyond food, clothing, shelter lies this moral obligation for others. No, because that's easy. Anyone in the labor of food, clothing, shelter can toil over the concerns of others because it irrationally feeds this baptism that they need. I'm talking about stalking yourself, mofo. That the second you rise out of food, clothing, shelter is the second you are stalking yourself. And do you know how hard it is to stalk yourself when you've spent generations fooling yourself like this, playing these games with yourself so you can sleep? That kind of introspection takes a special kind of self-love. Because we have to see the child of ourselves behaving and realize the reason why a parent has so much sympathy for their child is because a parent understands developmentally where the child's at. So it makes any kind of impropriety okay. If there's flour completely covering the entire house and kitchen, if there's ketchup and mustard on the TV screen, if the cat is now purple, that the parent instantly has an understanding of where this child's at and applies that to how they react. Now, the economy may still be off, whatever, but you get it. That doing this to yourself is hard when you've been pretending the entire time that you're a grown adult who always makes rational, good decisions. At the moment you start to even say, hey, gut, how's it going? That's the first time the gut's like, are you talking to me? Are you fucking talking to me? Are you fucking talking to me? Are you fucking talking to me? That you enter into this whole new relationship where all of a sudden Scotty's like, why the fuck is the captain like asking for an audit of the ship? He asked me for a TPS report. Fucking captain just asked me for a TPS report. What the hell's wrong with that guy? That you enter into a volatile state the moment you do that. Most people run away from this, and there's a government program right there. Oh, thank God. For a second, I was thinking that I could go beyond food, clothing, shelter, and the system's there to go, oh, no, we know that's not right. Hey, come in here. Look how evil the Democrats are. Ooh, yeah, wow. They're not, or the Republicans are, right? They're not giving us enough soup. And so you find an entire underground world. You could look at society right now as the underground world. And what we call trolls are simply just people. People wandering around the system insisting, don't you fucking for a minute that I could have enough power that I could satanically, egregiously creating plasma, pouring it into this invisible entity. And that plasma, not only am I pouring that into it, not only am I creating that fucking demon by exercising it out of my denial. Keep in mind, denial is evacuation, which means you might as well be a fucking Yakuza, sticking your finger on the table with a wood chip, chopping your finger off. You might as well do the same thing, because plasmically, that's what's fucking happening. Imagine if we could see our coat of many colors. Imagine if we could see all that we've placed in ourselves so we could maintain this fucking illusion. You end up with a Dalmatian reality, right? You end up with this Rorschach inside a Rorschach. And the second Rorschach is only there to make sure we never see the first one. We are so freaking clever, we will pull this shit, and we will do it well. We will do it so well that we will be elected as governor. And that even the satanic among us will be called so satanic that they will be elected with our fame. And that every one of these people that calls themselves Christian for decoding what happened in this evil ritual is actually an army of exorcists feeding the egregore with their powerful spiritual breath. I don't want this responsibility. I will not lay claim to my own power. I will give it to this satanic ritual. But James, there really are satanic rituals. There are rituals. We make them by bowing down to them. We give the egregore under our bed validity by feeling safe right after we pull our foot in. We don't give them validity necessarily by being fearful, although you do. I'm telling you, though, that we miss how much validity we give them by suddenly feeling better by our reaction to the foot. That we now know that into us is the idea that, hey, if I can find something satanic today that has nothing to do with me, I will achieve baptism. I will feel cleansed. And finding that honesty about ourselves and about how our energy works shouldn't be hard, but it is in this land of Rorschach. It's very hard. And that's why you have to understand that's the prana economy. What is the prana economy, James? I'm new to your work. It's the idea that every transaction that you make with someone is about energy. It's not about work. It's not about anything else except for the exchange of energy, and that you will purposely vent. You will purposely dump energy as much as you will pick it up. That you will pilfer energy in certain situations, and you will let energy off in certain situations. I'm not trying to be gross, but it's a lot like farting. You don't want anyone to think men don't believe they fart unless you're married. Then it's okay. That's part of the marriage contract. Is okay, you get to do that, but fart, and then that boom, now you have a marriage. That is the exact same thing that's happening with energy. That we want to pretend that we never have to pass gas. But with energy. And that we will act out these elaborate schemes at the water cooler simply to cover up the fact that we just farted. Basically, we just dumped some energy. Now, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with releasing the pressure of air trapped inside your intestines. I want us to do that. I think that it's probably dangerous if you don't do that. It'd be even better if we could just simply recognize that we do that. That the more we recognize to do that, what ends up happening is we tend to do it less in front of others. We tend to involve others less. That we create an honest system for our ship. And that's why there's a breach between Scotty and Captain Kirk. Because Captain's telling everybody, oh no, our ship doesn't fart. And Scotty's like, are you kidding? Have you not seen our warp core? Look at this. Look at this button. When I hit this, we dump all this energy. Why do we dump this energy? Because the captain's nervous. The captain doesn't like having all this energy all the time. Sometimes he fucking loves energy. He wants more energy. He's like, hey, where's my warp core? And I have to tell the captain, dude, you just fucking dumped your load 3 blocks back. Why'd you dump your load? Because you weren't ready to face something else. And you decided, holy shit, I have so much energy right now that I'm seeing things on my radar that I don't want to see. Or Spock, how far away is that Vulcan ship? It's 3 light years. Okay, how much energy do we have to dump where our radar cannot sense 3 light years away? 17%. Scotty, I need you to dump 17% of the energy. But Captain, we've got to have that if we're going to learn morals. Shut up, Scotty. I need you to do that. Booms. Dumped. Spock, are there any enemies on our radar? No, Captain. We are completely safe. We have landed in the 6-breasted horror nebula. Everything's fine. That regulation is fine. Don't take this as none of us are supposed to regulate. This is what religion does. It makes us think because no one farts, no one should fart. I'm teaching something different here. I want all of you to crawl underneath your undercarriage and look under there and notice that there's a pressure relief valve. Okay, this is now just getting way too gross. But you have the ability to relinquish this pressure. You have the ability to absolve yourself. That what you want is to feel clean. And that one way you could feel clean is by pointing at the evil of someone else. Whether or not they're real or not doesn't matter. An entirely different way of feeling clean is to simply find the clean that's in yourself and give it witness. It's a completely different way of approaching things. And it gets you higher on that pyramid, which means as you progress into progress, your life isn't easier. Your life is now more challenging. It's more rewarding and it's more challenging. And it's not easier. None of it. If you're going to have more reward, that doesn't make it easier. That means it was more challenging. And that we are epigenetically bred for easy. Our mind is raised like veal to make easy as possible. Now ask yourself why. James, why would we have a system that breeds laziness? It's because it's satanic. No. The system is not that way because it's satanic. This system is that way because we want a system that makes that as easy as possible. That we created that system. It was not they. It was not a secret, anonymous fucking goat that we're going to slaughter and push off a cliff later and blame him. That it's us. That we are the ones that create that egregore every moment by denying our own responsibility, our own power. And it's a good transaction. There's nothing wrong with this, guys. This is not a sermon saying people suck because of this. No, people are fucking brilliant because they do this. They're brilliant because they do this. And when you see the brilliance in others, you will hold someone else to a higher standard. Blacklight Industries, it's hard work, but well worth it. Damn straight. Why? Because now you're mining pride. Before, you were covering up pride to feel better. Now you're mining it. There are people out there that call pride satanic. That say, well, if you value yourself, then you're going to have more pride. Therefore, that would make you more satanic. They don't ever actually say that because if they did the math, they'd realize how stupid that sounds. But that our attack on the ego is not because of satanic overlord. It's because we want a system that will attack anyone right away the moment they start feeling pride. Because if we have that across the street, all of us can feel a little bit safer. It's no different than Japan. You walk through the streets of Japan and everyone's wearing a mask. Why? Because it makes us feel like we're protected. It's the cheapest, easiest way for all of us to suddenly feel, hey, I'm protected. If I wasn't protected, I wouldn't be wearing this stupid mask. All of these are trying to play on ourselves because of how intelligent we are and because of the neurological chess match that's happening at all times. Your heart has certain goals for this kingdom. Your lungs have another. Your muscles are like, look, I'll lift some weight, but can't we find a way to not lift weight? Your brains, I will think, but can we find a way to do this without thinking? Your lungs, I will breathe air for you, but can we find a way to make it more efficient? So all these things that you're doing are good. They are helping your survival, and if you become more generous, you are the only source of morality in this world. The church does not produce morality. The state does not produce morality. Flowers do not produce morality. Dirt does not produce morality. You do not mine morality. We do not find morality on an asteroid. Only humans generate the pollen of morality. The only ones. And like any flower, if that flower has more fuel, it will produce more pollen. It's just hands down, it's just math. More fuel, more pollen. More fuel, more pollen. This is a motor, right? So as you're watching people decode this latest event, I want you to look at the prana economy that's running in them. I want you to see how much cleaner they are going to feel by you buying into the fact that there's this evil force that purposely goes to a rap concert and encourages people to trample each other. Now, we've got to talk about the symbolism here. Because some of you guys have decided that anytime you see symbolism, that means there's evil and there's Satan. And you've got it fucking backwards. That this world resonates through synchronicity. Symbolism itself is a tone, like a cymbal, like a bell. That the symbol rings through synchronicity. And that these synchronicities do not require a single person or a committee or a secret committee or a bunch of people wearing a ring with an eye on it to instigate a symbol. That the synchronicity can occur naturally in this world. And not only can it occur naturally, but it does because the world is trying to tell you something. It's showing you that resonance runs this world, that the prana economy of resonance and of suppressed emotional agencies turned into an egregore are going to manifest themselves through Freudian slip, but not Freudian in the traditional personal way, in an egregoric way, in a society way, that the egregore of society, you are so powerful that even you pull the strings of the egregore, even you do it, and that we're watching that action happen all the time. And the egregore will grow more powerful as we evacuate ourselves. Why? Because 1,000% of the ego, 100% of that egregore comes from man. There's not a source outside of man that feeds that egregore. This evil force that you think is not a fucking well underneath the queen's castle. That you calling the queen evil is going to make you feel really good. In fact, anyone that's rich, if you call them evil, you are rewarding yourself for staying. You're creating the matrix where it's like, hey, that's it. That's the way it is. And you're seeing that now with crypto. I don't want you. If you're afraid of crypto, man, fucking stay away from crypto. Don't fuck that shit up. If you're afraid of crypto, stay away. If you believe the dollar's going to save you, stay in that. If you think that no matter what we do, we're fucked, stay there. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Because all around us, there are people that are no longer afraid. We're surrounded by people that are no longer afraid anymore. Something different. And those two people met one day in a park and said, hey, Josh, I encrypted my PIN code and wrote it on this table. Everyone else in the world could see my PIN code, but only you would know how to decrypt it. And then you could take the PIN code and walk to an ATM machine and pull money out of it. We have our own bank. That we create our own system. This analogy doesn't work because of the ATM thing, but this is really what, if you want to know what crypto is, it's personal banking. It's amateur banking. It's like amateur ham radio. And right now, as you're watching these crypto ideas, some good, some bad, erupt, I'd like you to consider that a long time ago, there was something called radio. And all of a sudden your neighbor showed up and he had a dish. He had this thing called a ham radio. And he was sending his own signals across the fucking world and receiving signals bounced off the dome. And those two people were now talking, and they didn't need military. They didn't need government. They had each other. And that meanwhile, while those ham radios were doing that, a bunch of villagers that love watching television decided they were going to burn down that motherfucker's house. Because he was evil. And all of us are going to be on ham radio in a few years, and we're all... And that same fear happened with the sword. The sword, the invention of the hammer, that all technology is powerful. Watching is people afraid of power. They're not afraid of blockchain. They're not afraid of crypto. They're not afraid of Satan. They're not afraid of government. They're afraid of fucking power. And that's why they keep voting it away. That's why they keep giving it away. Because it's too expensive to hold. It burns their fingers. The satanic rituals are the exorcism of people relinquishing their power into a pit and hoping to God that that pit is never traced back to them so they can keep this baptism fetish that they have. You want to find evil in the world, look in the mirror. Look at where you evacuate, look at where you don't, and realize that evil is simply evacuation. That's all it means. That's it. And that every time you evacuate, you're creating a little plasma baby, a little alien sucker guy. He's going to run to someone's face. He's going to jump on there. It's not going to look like you. No one's going to know it's you. But that's what's happening. We're going to sign off for today. Sorry about the jumpy start today. If you guys have a great week and a beautiful time. Remember who you're not. And start to realize that it's okay to disagree. That if someone doesn't see the way the world is, that if you're upset because they don't see it that way, that person is a weakness in your own field. I was talking shit about Vikings last week, and some of you guys got really mad. You are not a fucking Viking if you can't handle me talking shit about Vikings. I mean, seriously, if anything proves that you're not suitable for that religion, it's that. All right? So I think I did you a favor because I showed you that this isn't going to work. It's the same thing with the Marines. There's certain ideologies that's how they're tuned. That's how they're sharpened. We are sharpened like stone. We're not pumice until we're soft. We are sharpened like fucking stone, motherfuckers. So get used to it. No one's here to agree. If you want to agree, go start an egregore by telling everybody you haven't masturbated a month while you're jacking off in the back, right? Do something like that. What a terrible way to end the show. Just have a great day.